transitioning back to the internet. So on Design Huddle, we typically cover two things. It's either UX design or just general internet tech news. So this is a little bit more on the tech news side. So if you are more interested in design tips, go check out one of our other episodes. But if you like tech news, this episode we got you covered. There's a really cool visual article that I recently saw from Input. James Peruo, I don't know if that's how you say his name, but this author did a really good job. The title of it, and we'll link it in the show notes, is "This Psychedelic Data Visual Shows the Wild Evolution of the Internet." And it's actually fairly difficult to like describe how it looks, so we'll try to be descriptive, but it's a full
psychedelic's
screen,
a good word.
yeah, it's super trippy. Like it's a very like psychedelic. Good thing we're doing this on a Friday. We probably need some drinks or something like. But anyways, anyone familiar with the phrase dial-up can tell you that the internet has come a long way since the 90s, when the web was a place you could only visit with one very large, probably gray box. So I wanted to ask you, this article like is mostly just like reminiscing about growing up in the internet era that we did. Yeah. What was your first experience like with the internet or a computer that you were like, you know, that, I don't know, maybe sparked a passion or something that you became more interested in?
So it would have been back in 1996 in art college, and email was, and we just treated email like a chat room. So there'd be like, I'll be one end of the computer lab and someone be on the other, and we're literally sending like what would be the equivalent of SMS messages. Hi, how are you doing? Then looking over the computers and laughing because this was the most amazing thing. It was really sad. Yeah. And then seeing like Yahoo chat rooms with microphones. And what was the weirdest observation was how quickly abusive people got. Like it just seemed like this, just like swearing for the sake of swearing at each other. It seemed like this ability to be anonymous without any consequence.
Well, it's just 2021 and we still have that problem. We have plenty of
I mean, we were kids,
warriors.
basically. Like we're talking like 16, 17-year-olds in art college. Because in the UK, like our specialism, we leave high school for us ends at 16. And then we spend 2 years in what we would call college, which is basically preparing you for university. And which you leave at roughly 18, 19. And then you go do the thing that you're going to study proper. So it's almost like a portfolio building thing. So the art college space, we were like 16, 17-year-olds and just seeing people just laughing, saying, say this, this and this, like the most abusive, like South Park swearing, basically. But it was because it was funny that you could actually say this to a complete stranger. Like it was almost like a novelty, which you think, wow, nothing has really changed in 20 years. And so then from there, the actual proper experience of the World Wide Web would have been 56K modem, dial-up. If someone phones, basically, that this game of StarCraft is over. And it just,
I mean, computer games, like just mentioning StarCraft, like I would say my love of computers came from computer video games.
Yeah.
The fact I just could not get over the fact that I could click a mouse and then control actions on a screen and then create strategy around it. So when like the whole Blizzard, Warcraft, StarCraft like versions came out, it like changed the way that I looked at computers. So that's very relatable for me, but go ahead.
Yeah, so I mean, in terms of like just viewing the web, I mean, because it was such a novelty, we'd go to like wrestling websites and just print off pages of photographs of these like WWF or WWE wrestlers, and just eventually after 6 months throw the paper away because it's like, why am I doing this? It's like, oh my god, we can print these pictures of these wrestlers. I don't know why. It was kind of weird. I suppose it's just the novelty of being able to access anything instantly. I mean, that was
instantly, but it was like people were much more patient because you remember like if you did like I still remember it being like the AOL like I guess like the authentication phase where it would go through everything. It took so long, and then I don't know if this happened for you, but when the phone rang, you'd get disconnected from the internet.
All the time. Yeah, I'd have to tell my parents not to pick up the phone, and then especially in StarCraft when it's like the game goes into that dialogue of like countdown of death, and you're like, oh no. But then when I was 19 and like the beginning of my university, there was a new guy who joined class, and I think he came from a more computer science background, And so he was showing me like HTML code, and this looked like the Matrix to me, like it's an amazing thing. And I went, you're actually able to change the thing on screen. And it's weird. I mean, in hindsight, it's like, why didn't you know this? But it's kind of like, if you've never had any kind of careers advice, the idea that someone could be a doctor or a football player, is that a career? Like, it never really, it sounds really, I was really naive and dumb as a kid, but it didn't really occur to me that this could be actually a path, because I come from like the proper project equivalent, like proper ghetto. So, which sounds silly in a British accent. I'm from the ghetto, don't you know? But because I never had access to these things, seeing like you, that's what the great thing about university. You meet people from different backgrounds, and he showed me HTML, and it was like, it's so cliche. I wrote the blank tag, which made which doesn't work anymore, but that makes text flash. And he said, "Oh, just upload it to my free server." And then seeing the web, I was like, "Oh my god!" And that moment, I think 1999, that was it. I was no longer a graphic designer; I was going to be a web designer. And so, like, this obsession of how to control what's on the screen has been like the biggest bane of my life. Like, because for the first generation web designers, everything you learn about print, layout, typography, that all went out the window. You had no controls, like table layouts. So, and then obviously the rise of Shockwave, Director, Flash, and so forth. Yeah, so I mean, so seeing these things are quite reminiscing of like the World Wide Web, and it kind of, I hear it just as the rise of Flash, really. And like, to look at the visualization, it looks like if you were to look at, I think they're like viruses under like a microscope, and you see all these like fractal colors. The first image it reminds me of like a virus, like an organism that you're looking at.
Yeah, and I think that's part of it too. Is so the visualizations come from this guy named Barrett Lyon. He's a designer and founder of the Opti project. I'm probably not doing his name or his project justice, but it uses real IP data to show visually how the internet has grown from 1997. So it's funny that you mentioned 1996. So 1997 to me is like peak old school internet until now, using the colors of like nerves. So it almost looks like how you would imagine like the brain works, where it's like, it's like firing like different neurons back and forth. That's kind of what the visual looks like. But it's just super cool, and I think the main thing is you can see the different like I think it gets into what the colors, like the meaning of the colors are. But going through this, I was on my desktop monitor, and the visuals were just super compelling. So I just found myself like kind of staring at them for a while. Oh, here it is. But each color of the web represents a different network. So blue was North America, green was Europe, red was Asia, orange was Africa, and white representing the backbone network that connected them all. So that's the other cool part. It's showing the world as like this interconnected place. And like, that's the coolest part about the internet, is that there's just a series of connections. So seeing it grow is wild. And I think the thing that's amazing is that you can obviously imagine, LATAM, Asia, Africa have all really kind of gone up of late. People have probably heard the phrase the next billion users. But it's just, I think the reason that I like this is, one, of course, the internet has grown dramatically. Two, more people have access to the internet than ever. And then three is, it's still with those first two, I'm still shocked with how many people still don't have internet access at the same time. Where there's still a large portion of the population that doesn't have an internet connection, doesn't have a mobile phone, like, which seems wild to me in 2021, but that's still the case.